Disclaimer before this video starts. I'm losing my voice really badly, actually. So yeah, I'm probably going to be moments where there is going to be a lot of coughing or a lot of spluttering that I'm going to have to edit out. This is going to be a fun video in it. All right, let's get started. Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing the next episode of me reviewing every Precure series, and this one hopefully isn't going to take me nearly a year to do. Today we're going to be looking at the sequel to our last video, Precure Max Heart. This is a sequel to Futariwa Precure, and the season ran between the 6th of February 2005 to the 30th of January 2006, with a total of 47 episodes. This is one of two seasons to get a sequel season, the other being Yes Precure 5. I think going into writing this, it's going to be very samey if I write a review because then not a lot of changes done to the original. And where I think it's going to be more of a comparison video to its predecessor, such as what they did better and what could have been done better compared to the last season, I will not try to repeat points that I made in the last video, so sections where I feel are the same, I will just add key points that are exclusive to Max Heart. So if you haven't watched the first video, I'd really recommend going back and watching that first. I still haven't gotten into things like writing videos and editing, so hopefully you will still enjoy it. But let's start breaking down this season, starting with our main cures. So first we'll talk about the cures, starting with Nagisa Mitsumi or Cure Black. She's my favourite of the series, easily top 3 cures for me. Nagisa, I feel, is the character with the most development. She is the captain of the lacrosse team. Seriously, there's 3 episodes where they do a lacrosse game with Nagisa's team. With Nagisa as well, I guess there's also the most characters she can interact with, Honoka and Hikari, Shiho and Rina, her family, etc. So I feel Nagisa is the easiest character to make episodes about. Nagisa is still her lovable hot-headed self, and thanks to Hikari, she now only has to look after Meppel rather than 3 or 4 mascots she had to look after previously. Some notable Nagisa episodes are the one where her and her mother gets into a fight and she gets sick because Nagisa caught a cold going out without a coat. I think it shows Nagisa's stubborn side but also shows her caring side towards her family. There are also 2 key episodes about Fujipi as well, Nagisa making a birthday present for him. She makes him a handmade towel like she did for Honoka with her lab coat on her birthday. And then there's episode 42, which really annoyed me. So we're going to talk about that one later in the key episodes section. Overall, Nagisa is the same character she was in the first season, and once again, she is the best character. Second cure is Honoka Yukishiro or Cure White. Again, like Nagisa, I'm not going to go into too much detail and just talk about what changes in her character for Max Heart. Honoka is also the president of her club, which is the Science Club. However, unlike Nagisa, she doesn't get as many episodes to stand out in the role. She really only has 2. There is episode 9 where it's Honoka's birthday and she shouts at another student at the Science Club, which to be fair is pretty justified because it's chemicals. And if you're not watching what you're doing, it can be very dangerous. Honoka feels bad about how she handled the situation, and it's a good episode for Honoka to learn how to be a leader and how to support her club members. The other episode is a revisit from an episode of last season where she is hosting the science fair they won. Honoka is debating if she wants to repeat the project they did last year or do something completely new. Everyone voted for last year's project, but Honoka has no heart in the project and really wants to change the project to recycling. And she takes the initiative to change the project. Again, this is showing Honoka being a leader and taking a project no one is enjoying and making it into something they are going to enjoy rather than a project where they would win. I think compared to Nagisa being the captain of the lacrosse team, Honoka's club is kind of sidelined. I would have loved to have seen more episodes. They've hinted that Honoka loves to invent things. For example, a remote that Akane has that sends orders to her and she can just get them from the kitchen. And Honoka made that controller. I would have loved to have seen more of that. But other than that, Honoka is still our lovable science geek with a bit of sass. Now we have a new character appear in the season, Hikari Kojo or Shiny Luminous. I think she's my favourite cure in regards to Sixth Ranger cures. I feel a lot of Sixth Ranger cures can be strong, Mary Sue's. Ace, Parfait, and Cosmo being 3 of the worst examples I can name on the top of my head. With Luminous, she's more timid, scared, etc. However, I do feel like she's more of a support character, like an Aerith or a Yuna from Final Fantasy, and that's really it. I would have really liked to have seen her grow into a fighter too. Luminous is the Queen of Light, so I think she would have been pretty strong, but she's more support for Black and White. There are support cures in the past who can also fight. A recent example being Cure Butterfly from Hirogara Sky. She has a weapon to support her teammates, however, she also has the ability to fight. She also has a lot of sass, and I love her, but we'll wait to the Hirogara Sky video before we talk about her. As for Hikari, I really like her. She's a lot quieter in the background compared to Nagisa and Honoka. We do also get a lot of great qualities about her too. I really like seeing her work at Akane's cafe, and her relationship with Akane is also really sweet, even if she did change her memories. I also think Hikari is a contributing part of what makes Poru more likable in Max Heart, since he's now a mascot supporting a cure. A notable episode of those two was Poru wondering why Hikari doesn't get angry at him. To me, makes me think he spent way too much time with Nagisa, who's a bit more hot headed. Hikari does not get angry, but she does need to learn to be more open with her feelings with Porun. I think the problem though with Hikari is that she doesn't have many noticeable episodes. I think this season was very Nagisa heavy, and Honoka and Hikari are sort of sidelined. I would have really liked to have seen a bit more rather than her just being a background character, because until later in the season, when she starts interacting with Hikaru, I don't really see much Hikari unless she's with Nagisa or Honoka or Porun. I think overall with the cures, they're pretty much the same as the previous season. Like I said before, I feel this season was very Nagisa heavy, which I was surprised, and I felt like the first season had a better balance between the two. And having a new character too, I think we needed to spread the episodes out with the three characters. And Nagisa is my favorite of the three, and I get that she definitely stands out of the three, but I would have liked to have seen Honoka and Hikari more. Who was your favorite Max Heart character? Let me know in the comments below. So moving on to the mascots, we'll start with Mepple. He is my favorite in the first season. His dynamic with Nagisa is one of my favorite Kia mascot pairs. However, Mepple is very behind the scenes this time round. He still has some good comedy moments with Nagisa. An example is him scaring Nagisa when they're thought to be a ghost in the school. But other than that, Mepple takes a big step back, which I find weird since the Nagisa Mepple dynamic is one of the things that made the first season really good. But there's no focused episodes this time with Mepple and Nagisa or with Mepple. So yeah, for a mascot who was quite loud in the first season, he just seems to be quite quiet here. There is also Mipple, who's also quite quiet this season. There's really not much to say. They're both mostly the same as last season. They don't really have focused episodes this time. Mipple is still there to support Honoka. She's there when she has to make the choice to move in France or not. But she's also the mother to Porun like last season, and also Lulu. We'll get to her. But other than that, Mipple is just Honoka's transformation item this time. Okay, so I think out of all the recurring characters in Precure, Porun is the character with the most improvement. In the original, Porun is this annoying child character that I really didn't like. Massive improvement in the sequel. Porun still has his temper tantrums, however, he matures so much as the season goes. I love his relationship with Hikari, and I love that he becomes a mascot that assists Sakura like Maple or Mipple. I think he really helps with Porun's maturity and character development. His relationship with the other mascots is also a lot better as well. Later, he also kind of takes on Meppel's position in the first season with another mascot we'll get onto. That's the only thing I would say about Porun. Why is he now a babysitter when he is a kid himself? Although I do think they did tone down compared to the first season, but I do really like Porun in comparison to the last season. Next is Lulun. And why? Why was this character necessary? I feel like Lulun was honestly just created just to give Porun a taste of his own medicine. Now, I do think Lulun is pointless, and we are just doing Porun again, but despite what I said in my last video, I don't actually think Lulun is that bad. I remember her being way more annoying. I think it's because she's introduced later on, so I think we only have about 17 episodes with her. I also think it's better because Hikari can deal with the demands of Porun and Lulun, while it's clear that Nagisa and Meppo couldn't in the first season. And Lulun does actually have an episode I really like where Porun and her get taken away by a little girl, but they realize she's struggling to open up to her dad about breaking his car. So Lulun decided to stay and help even though she's advised against it from Porun. And Lulun at this point is really reliant on Porun. While he does stay to help, it's nice to see Lulu make a decision herself. Oh yeah, her clinginess to Porun is concerning. She is so attached to him and she can't be apart from him. She has huge separation anxiety, which makes me ask the question, where was she in the first season? Porun was away for a long time in Futariwa as well and ends up going into eternal sleep as well. So where is Lulu to find Porun there? Maybe she's just been traveling the world to find him for a year and a half and I wonder what journey she got up to. So there's a new group of characters introduced to the series called the Heart Eels. They are 12 fairies that have the power to restore the queen. I'll be honest, there's only one really worth talking about, and that's Seikun. I think she's around for the whole series while the others show up for a few episodes.
We have a couple that return, like the really annoying one that says the truth is coming. I think her name's Wishun, but I think when it comes to Seekun, I think she's a really good mascot to have. Her task is to find her friends and restore the queen, which she pretty much completes on her own. There are a couple that cures flying, but pretty much Seekun finds all 11 on her own. I also love the design of the Heart Eels. They're all unique for their character traits. Only thing they don't have is a lot of screen time. I think they could have been good replacements for the assistant cards that they were given in season one, since they don't really show up much either, like giving the kids advice or supporting the mascots on basic needs. Mipple and Mepple don't really have a lot of support this time round. A joke in the first season is that Mepple is hungry and Nagisa needs to feed him, and Mepple is a picky eater. They only do that joke once. With Mipple, she wants to study like Honoka in one episode, and she does that, but that's it. So personally, I think the Heart Eels could have been a good replacement for them. Overall, the mascots are pretty much the same as the last season, other than Porum being more tolerable and Lulun and the Heart Eels showing up. I like these mascots, however, other than Porun, I don't think there has been really much improvement on them, but Meppel and Mipple definitely go towards the sidelines this time. So, a lovely commenter suggested to me to add details about the Cures families, so we're going to try this out. Thank you so much for commenting your suggestion. Firstly, we'll be starting with Nagisa's family. Nagisa has the biggest family of the three, with her parents and her younger brother Ryota. Nagisa's family appears a lot in the season. They take the girls out on a camping trip, and that's a really good episode. There's an episode where Ryota's being trialed for a badminton team, and Nagisa doesn't know when to shut up when cheering for him. But it's a really sweet episode where Nagisa is showing to really care for her brother, and he gets on the team following his sister's advice on just having fun. Even though they lose the match, the coach saw their skill and they were accepted anyway. Not sure if that would happen in real life, sadly. Sport is about winning these days and not about fun, so, you know. However, my favorite episode is where Nagisa's mother is the star. Nagisa and her mother have a fight because Nagisa won't put a coat on while dropping some stuff up for Hanukkah. This caused Nagisa to get sick and they continue to fight. However, Nagisa's mother also gets sick, assuming she caught it from Nagisa, and she starts to feel bad and gets worried. Then she goes shopping with her dad, and he explains Nagisa was very sick when she was younger, and her mother took her out the snow to get her to a doctor. But I question if she was sick, why are you taking her out in the cold and not calling an ambulance? Are ambulances in Japan as slow as the NHS? Anyway, Nagisa hurries back to speak to her mother and apologizes. It turns out she is okay, and Nagisa isn't happy. She made her worry and they made up. And that's the episode. I think this is a good episode for Nagisa and her family. Sadly, Nagisa's dad does not get an episode, other than 2 minutes where he says he's going to Osaka, and Nagisa thinks they're moving. But other than that, we get a Ryota episode and we get an episode about Nagisa's mother. So why not one about her dad? Overall, I like Nagisa's family. I do think there's Likias that have better families, for example, being Love's mother in Fresh Precure. But I do enjoy the moments we see of Nagisa's family. We move on to Honoka's family. Her parents are still traveling. However, there is an episode where she is invited to move to Paris, so we know her family have taken residence in France. This was a good episode because a lot of people didn't know how to react to the news. Nagisa plays catch with Honoka, and they have a chat about what she wants to do, and she lets Honoka speak her feelings. And in conclusion, she turns down the offer to move over there in favor stays in Japan. Honoka's grandmother also makes a return. She doesn't really have much screen time compared to the first season. I can only name one episode where she plays a massive part in the story, and that is the Kia's protecting her from the baddies who are trying to kill her. In the same episode, she does have a connection with Hikari more than Honoka. I think she needed a couple more episodes where she was present, and of course, there's Chutaro the dog who goes camping with them, and that's it. Maybe this is the season that just favored Nagisa more because I feel her family had much better development and so much more screen time. So Hikari's a weird one. She doesn't really have blood relatives. She changes the memories of a loved character in the first season to think she is a relative. Who is this character? Akane. Akane is Hikari's guardian, and they both run the cafe together. So I guess this benefits Akane because she has free slave labor. Akane, I feel, is also a big influence on Nagisa as well, since she does also help out with the lacrosse team again like last season. I think as an older influence character, I really like Akane. Nagisa looks up to her and she really cares to Hikari. What I really liked at the end was when Hikari disappeared, and all it took for Akane to remember her was Nagisa asking if she had seen her. So while this arrangement was so Hikari had somewhere to go in the Garden of Rainbows, the bond became a lot more than that, to the point where Hikari stays with Akane at the end. Gonna go into that later because that makes no sense. But the third member of the family is Hikaru, the little boy in the mansion. Now, I'm not actually sure if Hikari and Hikaru are related. One is a descendant of the Queen of Light, while the other is of the Dark King. They look alike, so they could get away with being siblings, but on the Precure wiki, Hikaru is down as Hikari's adopted brother. I wish we could have seen more interaction with these two because they spend the majority of the season just staring at each other. Just want to say thanks to the commenter that advised to put this in. I didn't think much about speaking of the relatives of the cures, so I really do appreciate that feedback. Anything else you think I'm missing out on these reviews, please do let me know. I'm open to change the structure of my script if it's going to help with my videos. I've titled this School or Side Characters, but I think the only characters that are worth talking about are Nagisa's friends Shiho and Rina. These two get so much screen time this season. Shiho, for example, has another play episode where she wants to fling Nagisa in the air during a fight scene. It's not to the level of the iconic Romeo and Juliet episode, however, it's still a very entertaining episode where we get to see Shiho shine in that director's role. Rina, on the other hand, doesn't have a goal or a standout ambition. But she does have a really sweet episode with a raccoon that I'm going to talk about later on because it's one of my favourite episodes. As for the Science Club, Honoka's friend returns, which I can't remember the name of, and her name doesn't show up on the Precure wiki. I've tried. She doesn't have an episode, but she shows up in the Science Club episodes, and she does still have standout moments in regards to her friendship with Honoka. She helped make up with one of the members she fell out with and supported Honoka in making the right decision in regards to the Science Club presentation. Overall, Shiho and Rina are the standouts when it comes to side characters in this season, as well as Akane, but we've already spoke about her. So like in the last video, let's talk about the plot halfway through. So this is a sequel to Futariwa Precure, so we return to our heroes Nagisa Mitsumi and Honoka Yukishiro in their third year of middle school and the leaders of their clubs that they were in the first season. However, new enemies have appeared to try and resurrect the Dark King, using a small child. Kinda creepy. Nagisa and Honoka turn back into Cure Black and Cure White and are given the task to revive the queen with her life, a chariot, and 12 heart eels. Seikun is the first heart eel there to guide the girls to revive the queen. And this is why we meet a new character, Hikari Kojo or Shiny Luminous, who was in fact the queen's life. This is not a spoiler. I think this is where they could have done better with the plot and not revealing this right away. I think Hikari should have found this out at the end and made the decision to give up her life on Earth to save it. The Dark Zone, however, want to revive the Dark King, and they use a young boy called Hikaru to be able to do that. I'm okay with knowing about Hikaru's deal straight away because it would be very odd just to have a little boy and no explanation into why he's there. I do think the story is a lot more put together compared to Futariwa. In my last video, I complained about there being too many villains in the series, so it made the conflict just feel like there needed to be a villain for the sake of having a villain. The villain's motivation are a lot more interesting this time round, and we only have four this time, so they all had characters. Yeah, I don't think they were great, but it's nice to see them around longer than 4 to 7 episodes like in the last season. I also like how it goes straight from Futariwa, and both the Queen and the Dark King have both disappeared, and it's a race to see who can revive their power first. I also really like the inclusion of Hikari. I mean, other than her secret being revealed almost straight away, it's nice to get another character with the duo because I don't think there is a lot you can do with two characters for another 50 episodes. But overall, the plot here is much more interesting than Futariwa. So now, let's move on to the villains. First is Circulus. He is the first one to be introduced to the series. He's the more serious one, and I think he's the one with the most screen time. He's alright. He does a lot of funny Dragon Ball moments in one episode where he just spends the whole time Kami Kami his lungs out. But other than that, he's just an okay pre-care villain. Next is Aragonos. He's the big, strong, dumb guy. Actually, I got a few laughs out of him. For example, when Lulun first appears, he tries to figure out whether Lulun is big or small, and that's his concern. Not that there is a new ally for the cures, just if it's big or small. It's a shame I don't have much to say about these villains. They are better, I promise. They do still sometimes feel like they are enemies just to meet a certain quota at times, but overall, he is enjoyable for the screen time he does get. So on to Bibilis, and out of the four villains, she is my favourite. I think a lot of the Dark Zone are looking after Hikaru just for the sake of reviving the Dark King, and I would still say that's her main goal. But I do think she has some genuine care for Hikaru. Every time Hikaru runs into Hikari, for example, she has an emotional response, while everyone else has more of a logical response about the situation. I do have to say, I love her design. It's so alien like. Actually, compared to the first season, these villains are better designed and definitely have more presence than the first season. Our final villain is Baldus. He is the leader of the group and the most level headed. He also disappears for half the season, so he is the villain with the least amount of screen time. I think this was a good choice though, since the Dark King doesn't appear until the last couple of episodes. Baldus kinda takes the place as the leader. He's also the strongest of the four, as Black and White have struggled fighting him and need upgrades to be able to defeat him. Overall, I like him. I think his lack of screen time makes him more anonymous, and Baldus, I feel, is a villain we really needed in the last season. So the final villain, I guess, is Hikaru slash the Dark King. However, there's only one word to describe him, and that is underwhelming. Hikaru is built up to be this final threat at the end, and yes, he is a child. I'm not expecting child murder. However, I was expecting more from him because the Dark Zone were hyping him up to be this big bad guy. There was at least one mention every episode that he was going to do something. And what did he do? He got sucked up by the Dark King. That's it. Honestly, I do like bits though where he was playing with the Zakina butlers. It was a nice way to make the villains more entertaining because while resurrecting the Dark King, they do have to look after this little boy as well. Hikaru does get more interesting later on when he wants to go outside, and once he runs into Hikari, he gets very curious about her. But like I said before, I wish there was more communication with her because it just felt like the world's longest staring contest with them. Overall, I like the story and the motives of the Dark Zone more than the first season, and this time there only being four of them. I can remember their names and appearance a lot easier, and they were more memorable than the first season. However, I think a disappointing conclusion and all this build up of Hikaru being the big evil and going the way they did it was just a bit of a letdown, but definitely an improvement on Futariwa. Moving on to the transformations, we still have the same saying of dual aura wave. However, the transformation is different to the original, not compared to what I can say about the attack. The sequence here is so much better. The movements of the characters. I love Nagisa just falling and exploding, gritting her teeth, becoming pure black, and then Honoka just falling as pure white. I think it does show their personalities. The only thing I would say that I like more than in the original was the music. The original music really matches the transformation on screen, and while I say Max Heart is very similar to the soundtrack and the fight scenes, I'm not saying that this is a bad thing. It's a good piece of music, but overall, I did like the original better. The other transformation is Luminous Shining Stream, which is Shiny Luminous's transformation. I like the whimsical music. I like how short it is. I question how her plaits come out of her hair twice. I also really like how Luminous's weapon appears in the transformation, but I would like to know where it disappears off to. Overall, lovely transformation. So going into the attacks, we're doing the same attack again from the first season. I know this is the first installment of Precure, however, there's two more variants of this attack, and with the other three from the first season, that's now five versions of this attack. I'm going to once again point out that their summoning lightning, not thunder, still bothers me. However, I will say the second version of this attack, I love the music they use. It's so whimsical and I love it. But guys, it's different because they pulled their hands back now before they release the attack. Overall, I like the first season. It's an okay attack, and it definitely has improved with the animation and the music. However, we have seen this attack before. They haven't really changed much. I think it would have been nice to see a different attack with these characters. Although I won't be too harsh as this is the first season and they were still trying to find their feet with the franchise. However, that does bring me on to the group attack is actually something different. We have Extreme Luminario, which features all three cures Luminous powering black and white up and then using the attack. I like this one, although the beginning does look like Luminous is trying to attack black and white with how she just throws so much power at them, and they never get used to it or prepare to see it coming. I know it's repeated animation, but you would think after a few uses, you would think they would see it coming. This is really the only tack as well where we see Luminous do some damage, and it's on her teammates and not the enemy. Overall, a good final attack, but it does feature in the show very early, I think, instead of Black and White's bracelet. I think they should have found a way to upgrade this attack because other than the other two attacks I'm going to mention, this is the strongest Luminous gets, and I think an update on this attack would have been much better than yet another marble screw. Next is Luminous Heart Heal action. Now I think this is where you could have given Luminous an attack so she could defeat her own Zacinas. But no, this only freezes a Zacina. Luminous is lucky that Black and White is always around because she would be screwed otherwise. I do think though this is the only move where you see Luminous have confidence in her attack. The next solo Luminous attack we talk about in comparison. Overall, it's alright. I wish we had a proper attack for Shiny Luminous. The last attack is Shiny Luminous's brooch that can shield her from harm. Lulu triggers this and can turn into a brooch to protect Shiny Luminous. It's a 5-second attack, and the only thing that's mentionable about it is every time Luminous uses it, she looks like she's in so much distress, even though it's protecting her. Like, look at her face! She looks terrified! There's nothing really to say about this, she just looks terrified. Overall, with Luminous, there is definitely more variety in attacks, which isn't good, but Marble Screw is still the main attack. Overall, not the best attacks in the season, but also not the worst. The 2-minute group long attacks in Happiness Charge and Go Princess take that award. So, like last time, I'm going to go through some of my favourite or noteworthy episodes. I picked 3 again, like last time. I just think that's a good number, so we're going to start with episode 19. Nagisa's going to collect some stuff from home and overhears her dad saying that he's moving to Osaka and doesn't know how to tell Nagisa. Nagisa hears this and she feels like she needs to tell Honoka but just doesn't have the courage to do it. But there is someone who hears Nagisa's mumbling, and that's Hikari. Nagisa learns that it's her dad's boss moving to Osaka, not him. He was supposed to take Nagisa shopping that day, but he needs to help with the move. You know, this problem in this episode could have been cleared up in the first place if you just told her. Because now Hikari still thinks Nagisa's moving, she thinks she hasn't told Honoka, so she finds a way to try and tell her. But Hikari's also struggling to talk to Nagisa and Honoka. Again, this could have been cleared up very quickly if Hikari just spoke to Nagisa. I don't know why the first move would be to talk to Honoka. Surely you would want to clear up that information. Anyway, we learn in this episode that everyone's bad at communicating. Like it gets to a point where Hikari goes and fights Azakina on her own because she's in belief that they're gonna have to do that soon. What happens? She gets trapped in Azakina. So they defeat the Zakana, Nagisa clears up everything, and that's the episode. Now, this episode just really lacks communication. This mess wouldn't have happened if 1. Nagisa's dad just told Nagisa when she asked about it, and 2. If Hikari went to Nagisa to get clarification on what she said. So, if there's anything to get out of this, please clarify information before you, get confused and go and tell people and fight Asakana. And then you too will not get trapped in Asakana. An episode I really liked was the next one, episode 20. It was nice to see an episode dedicated to Shiho and Rina. Rina has found a tanuki and she really wants to keep it, but the others are telling Rina that animals belong in the wild. Shiho and Rina have this really sweet moment where Shiho tells Rina that she will support her decision no matter what it is, but this brings up another conflict in the episode. Prekias will eventually have to say goodbye to their mascots after the conflict is done, and they realize these moments are not going to last forever. It's also about them coming to terms with that. This is a really good episode because it develops 2 characters and shows Shiho and Rina's friendship, and as well to deepen the relationship between the Kyos and the mascots. In the end, they conclude that yes, this will happen, but it's not today, so to enjoy every moment the Precure has with their mascots. I think the reason why I like this episode is because I think the relationship between the Kyos and the mascots are the strongest of any Precure season, especially Nagisa and Maple being my favourite Kyo mascot pairing. Well, it's kind of tied first with Nodoka and Rabidine from Healing Good, but overall, really good episode. Okay, so I didn't want to talk about this episode because it was one of my favorites. I wanted to talk about it because this episode annoyed me. So Nagisa is thinking about telling her feelings to Fujipi, and they all go ice skating. This episode is hinted towards Nagisa finally telling her crush after how she feels after 2 years. And spoiler alert, they chicken out last minute. Nagisa's about to tell him on the Ferris wheel, but the Dark Zone attacks. Okay, fair enough. Nagisa knows her priorities. However, after that, she speaks to Honoka and then just decides to shout it off a ledge, which he didn't hear, and Nagisa just tells him to have a Merry Christmas. I know Precure isn't really a show about romance or relationship like other magical girl anime, Nagisa clearly liked him. Even if it was Nagisa confessing and she got rejected, I'd take that over that. Never mind, I'm not going to tell him. It's so anticlimactic, especially since this storyline has been portrayed in 2 seasons. I really hope they amend this in season 2 of Alternate Precure. We can't have Nozomi and the paedophile only be the canon couple. I think Max Heart had less memorable episodes compared to Futariwa, but that could only be because I've seen Futariwa so many times. Meanwhile, with Max Heart, this is only my second viewing of the season, so I completely understand that could be why. But other than the last episode, most of the episodes were quite enjoyable. So this is a short finale with only 3 episodes. Precare Max Heart is one of the shorter seasons with 47 episodes. This is an okay finale. Like I said, if they had revealed that Hikari was the queen here rather than at the beginning, I think that would have made the choice of sacrificing Hikari's life and Nerf at the end a lot more emotional. This finale was rather dark as well. There's a scene where Black and White defeat all the villains, however, are too weak to fight the Dark King, and they just accept defeat and death. I do really like how it was Shiny Luminous that was the one to go in and defeat the Dark King. She doesn't do it fully. Black and White do help out. But if it wasn't for Luminous resurrecting the Queen, and the King would have won. It gives Luminous a moment to be the initiator rather than support. But again, this is very the same to the last season. I do really like all the villains making it to the end and contributing something to the fight. I feel like that's something the first finale really needed. However, this is the third time we've seen Black and White versus the Dark King. I just want to mention Hikaru here as well because they build him up to be someone who is the Dark King and then resurrect his power. However, in the end, Hikaru just gets eaten by the Dark King. They do save him, and they do get the limb in the last scene, but the build up, this character all season to be this big threat, and I know he's a child, and as much as I moan about villain redemptions, I think we can all agree that Precure probably shouldn't be killing children. I think the redemption route is the best way to go with this, but Hikaru literally contributes nothing to the ending. So overall, this is an okay finale. I think this could have been done more with it. I think Black and White should have been present when Luminous made the decision to become the queen again, and I think there could have been more done with Hikaru. The last scene is Nagisa and Honoka graduating from middle school. They reflect on the last couple of years in their clubs and precures in school. Maple and Mipple go somewhere, I don't actually know where, assume in the Garden of Light. Honoka gets upset that Mipple couldn't be with her when she graduates, and you know deep down Nagisa misses Mipple. They go to Akane's shop where they discover Hikari's there with Horun and Lulun. Nothing explained, she's just there. The Queen must have let her off with some duties or something, but that does raise a lot of questions. Who's in charge of the Garden of Light then? Has it fallen into chaos? Why is everyone from here just back? Is the Elder in charge now? Because I think that could end horribly wrong. Let's just go with that the Queen couldn't be bothered to and gave the role to the Elder, and the Garden of Light collapsed. That's why we don't have season 3, or is that too dark? So overall, that's Precam Max Heart. There were some aspects I prefer, like the villains and the overall plot. However, I think Futariwa had more memorable episodes. I'm more on the fence to say Max Heart is the better season. I just wish there were more character focused episodes on the other characters. Like I said, Nagisa is my favourite in the season, but she got way more episodes than the other two, or at least it did feel like that. I also think it was very similar. Same villains, transformations, attacks, etc. I understand that this is the first installment and they were trying to find their feet, and thank God they didn't consider doing this when they made Precare 5 Go Go. When it comes to this season, I would call it 100 episodes season and 1. And if you do go back and watch these 2 seasons, I would recommend just watching them back to back. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I think this is the point where these episodes might go out of order because I don't want to watch all the good seasons at once. There's a part in the 2010s where 3 seasons in a row are not very good, so just for my sanity, I think I might just do these out of order. If there's a season you want me to speak about next, let me know. I will do Precure 5 and Go-Go back to back, but other than that, any season, let me know. Just please don't say Go Princess. I'm not ready for that one. That will be a very long video and not for the reasons you think. Anyway, see you in the next video.